Welcome, everybody, to today's after church tea time. I'm Lisi, and I'm joined by other ministers of union, Nadia, Granville, and Kenesha. So we're gearing up for Christmas. I've got a fun, festive background that I decided to keep up 'cause it's nice. But I'm really happy to be here today and talk about today's sermon. Um, so let's see if the others want to share something first takeaway. So I'll pass the mic.
First takeaway is that I feel you were the expert to explain all the five pitfalls. It was wonderfully explained, and I think that it's a video that people can come back to over and over again and still learn new lessons from it. And it was like Neelam had explained, it's like a pocketbook guide of how you can get through these pitfalls. And I would suggest whoever is listening and listen to your um, advice to really take it seriously, because these are the things that could deter you from the path or help you keep going. So I'm glad you shared them, and I'm glad that you had that expertise to really navigate people through this.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that you touched on was the persist through resistance, especially when we move through upheaval. I think a lot of people will spend time thinking that healing is going to always be roses and rainbows and sunshines, but there is a part that it almost feels like you're in the pit of things where you have to move through releasing everything that you're healing. And you even touched on managing your spiritual energy that you receive afterwards. And so having to persist through kind of that heaviness feeling that has to come up and be released as you do the inner work and calling in more love and joy requires uh, a level of discipline. I think that a lot of people will come into this twin flame journey thinking that they're just going to walk right into harmonious union, but there is a whole level of discipline and having to really let go of beliefs and thought processes that actually don't serve your union. And it does require work. I feel that um, my union has been the most rewarding, but it's probably been one of the harder things to obtain because it's so worth it. It requires a lot of love, a lot of presence, and just really being honest with yourself. And so I really felt like these five steps that you have given us really does help us move through all of that by just looking at each part and asking ourselves and being honest with the answer that comes up.
Mhm. And I feel like we're going to touch on every single one of them. But the one that's standing out in my heart is gratitude, because I just want to express that, like, the way I'm feeling is like this is it. The way that we are moving through this journey, I would not want to move through any other journey aside from self-development and finding heaven on earth. So I keep like it's like ringing a bell in my heart, like this is it. Because right before this, I saw The Good Place with my niece, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going through a cycle of hell over and over again. And I would not want to do that. And to find this journey and to continue going forward with it and have these lessons and this pocketbook, I'm really grateful that, like, you know that the end goal is going to be really juicy, like beyond what you ever expected, had known of. And those who have reached like those certain points, they tell us, but we never know until we reach it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's something that really stood out for me, and Ganesha touched on it as well, is just the persistence. And Lisa, I think you explained it really nicely. It's that feeling of literally trudging through mud, and it just, it kind of every single time there's some major breakthrough, that kind of trudging through the mud feeling just feels a lot heavier. It really feels like a lot more work than previously. And it's literally what you said around unhooking those tendrils, because they really do go deep. And we don't necessarily realize how deep they have gone until we start to actually do the work and we start to find it. And I think you highlighted it very nicely in terms of being grateful for the gift. But sometimes I feel like, good God, I don't want to be grateful for this upset kind of thing. I'm like, what the hell? How deep does this need to go? How much excavation is required? So, and it literally, it's what Kanisha spoke to around honesty. It's like just be real about how you feel, because when you are real about how you feel, you also find the gold at the end of the healing.
That is so true. And, after watching the sermon, because I did record it a bit ago, I was watching and I was like, gosh, there's definitely more than 5 obstacles. These are just the ones that came up. And so, um, feeling your feelings and being authentic is something that's challenging people as well. And in just acknowledging. I mean, of course, when we're moving through a block and maybe the block is you're noticing a lot of disrespect is coming towards you. Of course, we don't feel the disrespect and go, oh, this feels so wonderful. I'm so grateful. Like it's not like that. But I think the gratitude comes as it's very natural when you move through the mirror exercise and get to the end of it and see the end in the beginning, and then you can be grateful. Like at the time, I stubbed my toe. I don't like, assume a full lotus position. Oh, I'm so grateful I stubbed my toe. It's not like that. But
Thank you,
yeah,
furniture, for being there.
yeah. I think, it's not quite like that's very much a very authentic and real journey, but um the gratitude piece, like I sometimes in the past was so wrapped up in, focusing on the block or the thing I didn't like that I kept manifesting it. Like the universe heard me say disrespect. And so it's like, oh, she wants disrespect. Here you go. And so I would manifest these experiences over and over and almost like miss the very gentle, beautiful, loving gestures of the divine. Like my little niece making me a cute little bracelet. Like that was from her heart. And I remember the moment, she gave it to me, I was like, I stopped myself and I was like, I am wrapped up in what I'm upset about. And I'm going to choose to let that go and just receive this blessing and this gift. And then looking at the other areas in my life where I um, could improve on what I did after I completed the mirror exercise. And I think that's like telling like where you are on your spiritual journey is like what do you do once you heal? Like do you take different actions or do you go back to the pattern? And so anyway, gratitude really was really powerful and something that I was not practiced in initially, and being proactive about it was really helpful. And I'm still going deeper there too. So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that you also touched on that it goes hand in hand with gratitude is remembering that life is happening through you and not to you. And once I really started honing in on that, I was able to start to like see the lesson. And one of my favorite affirmations, or one of the things that I ask God for, is like, I really do choose and desire to move through my lessons as gentle and as compassionate as possible. And that way I'm not manifesting these incredibly difficult things to just receive some of the most like I wouldn't even say basic lessons, but just lessons that we all have to learn on this journey in order to manifest our union. And so I choose to do that gently and compassionately. But that does require also having gratitude when you have learned the lesson. For me, there have been times where I'm like, wow, that was really gentle for me to learn that. It wasn't comfortable. It wasn't something that I desire to go through every day. But the process of that was really loving and gentle. And it really helped me see what I needed to see when I needed to see it. And so being able to take a step back and observe your reality instead of being like sucked into it with the upset, is something that I'm very grateful for, that I've learned to be able to discern that and be able to just kind of be like, okay, why is this coming up? What belief am I holding on to? What story do I keep telling myself? And you mentioned that when you say like, I want disrespect, and the universe is like, oh, you want disrespect. That's something I also had to learn, was that the universe is going to give you who you are and what you're being, not always what you want. And so when we think about that, it really does reflect to you how your twin flame is mirroring to you. They're always going to be mirroring who you are, not always what you want right away, because you have to be the change. Once you shift into that change, so will they. And so I love this journey because it's really helped me move out of victimhood and really out of blaming. That's been a huge one, is really to take full responsibility and accountability of what is showing up in your reality, because it is moving through you and not just happening to you. So I really love that you touched on that.
What also stood out for me in what you're talking through and what you shared was that powerful essence of receiving and then giving through receiving and receiving through giving. And you didn't specify it in those words, but what came through for me was, even when the upset looks big or small or really bad or whatever's happening, there's always a process of receiving attached to it, so that you are able to acknowledge that this is where I'm at and this is what I'm feeling. And in that way, you are able to give to yourself, and through giving to yourself, you're able to give where it makes sense to give, which is what you spoke to around not mismanaging the newfound love energy. Because I think sometimes, because we have always been, well, and specifically for me, I was always in the space of thought that other people come first. It's literally that thing about putting other people first. And the resultant fact was that when I started unpacking it, I just realized how much resentment I was carrying for having given so much and not feeling like I had received so much. And so I think that just the way you framed it was perfect, but I think it literally goes to the core of balanced giving and receiving without expectation.
Mm.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that mismanaging energy, spiritual energy, is kind of challenging, because this work, the teachings of union, has just dawned on the horizon of humanity. Like the not God's teachings, but this spiritual update for humanity. And we're just grounding it, and we're kind of enthralled with it and passionate about it. And so it does feel like naturally you want to give that to someone, because that's natural. When you receive a gift, you want to not give it away, but you want to extend it to another person, like what you have, because you love people. But um, yeah, that's still something that I think, we can even go deeper on. And I think the example I used about, like, and I did hear Jeff and Shaleia talk about this, of people when they watch Twin Flame Ascension School and work with an ascension coach, their spiritual vibration is like skyrocketing, and kind of they don't know quite what to do with it. And um, it doesn't mean you shouldn't tell your twin flame that you're twin flames. Like, I certainly did, and we live together. But it's more like uh, feeling things out. And I think people can get kind of dissuaded. Like, I remember when I first came across the teachings of union, I was gabbing on and on about it to my family, especially like my mom, and teaching her the mirror exercise. And she got to step 2 or 3 and then was no, not for me. And I was disappointed. And so I realized that like she is where she's at, and maybe she'll approach it later, but I had to really surrender attachment and really see like, you know, what what uh God was calling me to do. Like the unionist prayer um talks about giving only as God calls you to give. And I think Jeff and Shaleia also say like no more, no less than what you're being asked to give. I think that's also from Romance Attraction. Um, but I think, for me, it's been a journey, like even in my own union of identifying where I was overgiving, like what Granville you were talking about, like when was I overgiving or mismanaging the energy, and when was I like withholding? Because withholding is another form of mismanaging spiritual energy. So it's a process. I think that it really just boils down to trying stuff out and finding out like what that point is for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I also have an example of like over giving, especially to my parents, because you find this newfound peace and you want to share it, especially when it comes to life purpose and overcoming poverty. And like similarly, they were like, no, 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 this is as far as I can go. God isn't abundant, and we were meant to be in this uh type of you know, poverty level. So it is disappointing, but it also touched on a victory that I had enough discipline to manage my energy and put boundaries, because they would keep coming back for those reassurance, but they wouldn't practice the teachings themselves. So learning from this sermon about victory kind of gave me like, wow, I came so far to even be able to give these boundaries and recognize like they're not victims, and like God has them. God has everyone. So it was really nice for me.
And I like that you mentioned the fact around they're not victims, because I feel like one of my big lessons on my journey has been to release that, because it feels like it was almost encoded in my family's DNA in some way, the solid relationship with struggle, that I was like, what is that about? Like, but I grew up with a mother who was very much, they are against me. They have done this to me. And and I couldn't for the life of me understand in my youth why it irritated me so much to hear this they thing. And, later in life, when I started actually just realizing how much the surroundings were about giving your power away and then blaming everything but yourself for taking the required action. And I could never understand in my youth why it bothered me so much. And now, as I've started to heal and as I've been healing through it over the last few years, I just realized that it was literally the energy of being anywhere but the center of your own life. And I was like, no, that doesn't work. And that's what felt off. And that's what's never been able to work for me. And then I have conversations with my sister. She's like, I wish I was more like you. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you just always used to tell people F off this and F off this and stop talking crap and whatever else. I'm like, really? I don't remember that. And I really don't. But like, this is what my family remembers about me telling people to actually just pull themselves towards themselves all the time. So it's kind of just been there, this thing about actually you are at the center of your life with God. And I just didn't realize that was the framing that I was feeling, even though I couldn't verbalize it. And which then makes you actually accept your peace and have true peace, which is what you were speaking to in the sermon as well, Lisa, is that like this fleeting peace, I think, is not necessarily true peace. And you know the difference because you know that you actually feel at ease.
I wanted to extend what you're saying about having God at the center and being at the center, because the more I heal, the more I recognize how powerful I am. And the more I recognize how powerful I am, it goes back to point two, where it's like expecting things to happen to you and not through you. And it went hand in hand for me, because the more I realized that things happen through me and within me, the more I realized how much power God had given me. And it's just very beautiful to be able to unfold that and really touch every corner of yourself and every aspect of your heart and see like God's kingdom within that, and like you tidying up every aspect of it to bring that into fruition. And recognizing like, dang, I'm also a creator. Like I'm here and I can really manifest whatever I want.
Yeah, it really allows you to focus on your relationship with God instead of trying to focus on getting your twin flame or getting the job or the house. It's really requiring you to be honest of where your attention and your focus is, which will always be guided back to God, because it's God who brings you these things. It's God that allows you to, who moves through you to allow you to receive these things, whether it's inviting you to move across the country and long and behold, your twin flames there, or whatever it is. It really is a deep level of surrender. And I think that is ultimately what a lot of the points that you pointed out requires you to surrender. It requires you to have to just relax into the teachings and trust the process. And being on this journey, going on 6 years here next month, it really required me to recognize that I knew nothing. I say this a lot, I know nothing, and I will like empty my cup and let God fill it because I know nothing.
Jon
But
Snow.
right, like just having to humble myself. And it really makes us have to come back to the basics. That's something that I also love about this work, is that every time you come back to the basics, you will see breakthroughs, because you are honoring each step of the journey and the work. And so as you take this work on as a lifestyle, I think you touched on this a bit too, of not allowing yourself to go through the open forum and read what people have to say there, and even sharing in the open forum or watching the classes. Like, it does require you to take it on as a lifestyle and it be just part of your daily routine. And when I really started doing this really was a game changer, because it almost felt like, oh, I'd have breakthroughs and now I'm stuck, and then breakthroughs and now I'm stuck. But if I really took on the complete support that I had, it was a continuous flow of just little breakthroughs and then a bigger breakthrough and then revelations and aha moments of just like the best way I can explain it in the image that I'm seeing right now is like a flower opening up. It's just like naturally blossoming the entire way. And so being able to just surrender to the work and surrender to the support that's here, the love that's here. I think that's also where a lot of people might have a little bit of friction or fear, is that it's because there's so much love here. It's almost like, no, this isn't safe. like
Yeah, it's like too
don't,
good to be true.
too good to be true. But in truth, it really is perfect for you. And you only have to focus on the work of the day. This is something I hear Jeff say all the time in my consciousness, like just focus on the work of the day. That's all you have to do. And the more that I've done that, it's like each day and each step of my journey is always perfect for that day and perfect for my union. And also the beauty of this work is like your twin flame is always moving with you, always doing this work inwardly too. There's the more that I've gone deeper into this work and I have shared with my twin flame when I feel guided to or called to, there will be times where I'm sharing something with him and he'll say something like, I know, and then he'll repeat what's already in my consciousness. And I'm like, oh, that's right, he does know this. Like, I don't really have to teach too much here because it's already in my consciousness and we share one consciousness. So it's almost relieving, and it allows me to just relax more into my union because I can help my twin flame learn how to love me, but at the same time, they are me. So I can just relax into loving me and have that mirrored back to me. So there's not so much a lot of teaching there, which is really cool. But there are moments where you are called to share something with them or help them heal something in that part of the consciousness to help you both ground into the truth. And so taking this on as a lifestyle, it really is the key, and allowing yourself to empty your cup and allow God to fill it each day, and really humbling yourself because, like you've mentioned, we have these blocks where we've healed it and then we go on and it comes back and you're like, wait, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? And I think we can all get stuck there at moments of like, you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't miss anything. It's just the next layer. It's just the next level of love. And so if you can let go of that fear and just trust and go right into it, you will receive what God has for you.
Amen. That was a sermon in itself, Kanisha. That was beautiful what you shared. Thank you. I love the part where you talked about like an ever unfolding flower and just that fragrance of love. It's just so nice. I do have a question for the group. The first kind of pitfall, maybe those of us who've been in the community for a while, uh, maybe haven't visited this pitfall in a while, or maybe so. But the pitfall was like, quitting when things got tough. So, have any of you moved through a challenge, either recently or in the past, where things were like really hard and you were faced with a choice of give up or surrender and trust love and keep going? And how did you move through that? If anyone wants to share.
Oh, there've been so many. Like it's just at the point of like sometimes I still feel it, and I still sometimes feel the almost not persistence as much as resignation to continuing. And I'm like, sometimes I actually have to take the step back and sit with that and say to myself, well, you're like, why would you resign to the fact of continuing? And it's not because let's be honest, the choice to keep going is not the same as the choice to resign to the fact of continuing. It
Yeah,
has
there's
a
a
very
different energy.
different energy to it. And so I constantly have to bring myself to that point. Am I choosing to continue, or am I not giving up because I've already carried on for so long?
Yeah, like dragging your feet a little. Fine,
So
mom.
I have to, and I constantly have to be honest with myself. Which is it? And to bring myself back to the center of like, why am I still doing this? And the fact is, I didn't come this far to not come this far or go further. And for me, that is the almost the respect of my investment in my journey, and respecting my investment in my journey, as opposed to going, well, hey, I'm not quite seeing the result I want, and so maybe this is not for me. Like, I'm not at that point in my life anymore. I've played this back and forth game with myself over the last 7 years, because I joined the community, I think, in 2017. So, and it's literally been a situation of dip your toes in the pool, step back and observe, and dip your toes in the pool and step back and observe, and then dip further and get further into the water and get more and more and more into the water. And getting more and more into the water for me has been the place where I start to feel like I can flow with the current. I can float on the water. It's safe. And I think safety has been a big thing for me about being part of this community. And I have gone through some of the coaches that have ended up leaving and had some very special ones in the process. So, it's always been a situation of every time I've gotten to a point where I feel like the relationship with that coach is starting to become glitchy, and I don't make the decision to move on, God shifts it anyway. So I know I'm safe, I know I'm protected, and I know because of that, I can continue. And that's really what has been the propelling force for me. So it's literally, as you said, Lisi, the God is the love in which I love myself. In this case, God is the support in which I support myself. God gives me the investment to invest in myself. So how can I not respect that? And how can I not continue with that? And yes, I do take my time out and I do take a step back, because sometimes I just actually need to clean up the vibration all over again. And that's okay too. And I do it. And I know sometimes it's not quite understood, but that's also okay. It is my journey after all. God is not going to put me in a space where the overwhelm is going to take me over. Because sometimes I do feel overwhelmed. And when I do feel overwhelmed, I do take a little bit of a step back and just ground again. But what I've found is that it's safe to do that in this community. And that's why it's safe to continue. And it's safe to persist through those feelings.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, the times where I have either wanted to give up or upset I've given up was because I hadn't given it over to God. I was trying to do something without God, without partnering with God. And that's where the frustration comes in, is when you're trying to do it from, like, be your own source and do it from your own capability, in a sense. And so anytime I've ever been like, I give up, I really, at the core, I'm saying I surrender. Like, I'm not, like, there's no desire to actually give up on my twin flame journey or myself, but I do give up trying to approach it the way I was trying to approach it. And so I've had to learn to just completely surrender. Anytime I do surrender and I'm just like, God, I give up on trying to do it my way. I'll choose to do it your way, and respect your plan and path for me. And when I do fully give it over to him, that is when it usually shifts and change. And then I'm just like, okay, what I actually give up on is trying to do it my way, is really what it is. And that has really helped me see the contrast of what it looks like to try to do things my way versus trying to do things God's way. And doing things God's way is really the most loving and only way to do this. So ultimately, there has been times where I have tried, thank God for this community and my friends that I have built in this community, because I think there's been a time or two where we get on a group chat and I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And they're like, cool, let's work through the upset and then we can talk about that. Like, let's get to a place of peace before you make that choice. So it's really wonderful to have that accountability. But ultimately, I think when people give up on this journey, it's just because they hit a really big block, and they have yet to really move through it completely and make a choice from a place of peace instead of making that choice from a place of upset.
Yeah, like for me, have I really wanted to give up on this journey? No, not really. Have I procrastinated? Yes. Have I been stagnant? Yes. But for me, like, having to be able to experience safety, like Granville was saying, like having to ground and really like be in my peace, and I can actually feel safe and not have to go back to hell or experience any type of the violence that I did before. I don't think I would make that sound decision of giving up or ever leaving a teaching or leaving the concept of God being love again, because it just doesn't make sense for me to not love myself anymore, and not, and like, you know, give myself that disrespect that I've experienced before. So yeah, it has been hard. It has had its challenges where I'm like, God, what the hell? Like literally, what the hell? But to I rather experience this and the challenges than have to go back to my old life. So I haven't
Mhm.
experienced anything that really was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm piecing out. But, you know, so we will see, but I don't think so. Knowing my character and my values, I don't think there will ever be a time where God will tell me, like, no, this is the time to go this way. Like, as far as I know and as far as I can see, this is the way for me, and this will forever be the way for me. So, I feel.
Amen. I loved what each of you shared, like Granville, what you were saying about how like you kind of owe it to yourself to keep going and all the investment that you made on your journey, looking at that and respecting it, like that it was crucial. And then also really accepting how you heal, like your rhythm of healing, and accepting yourself as you move through your process is really big. And like Kanisha sharing about surrendering to God and God's way. And like, yeah, that's so true. Like, when we feel like we're going to give up, usually it's because we're not doing it God's way. And that's a very simple and very powerful way to put it. It's easy to remember that. And Nadia, I really appreciate you, being really forthright about like your journey, because I've been through it too. Like I've reached moments, and they're going to be really personal and different for everybody, where I get, mostly it's for me, it's a block. It's one of my patterns. When I see a pattern, I'm like, ah, I did it again, and my challenge is not being hard on myself, like letting go of being hard on myself and making a new choice. And so I've seen progress. I think once you become a unionist and commit to this work, as you continue to take steps forward, you build trust with yourself and with the work. And that is like you're building like an infinite, everlasting storehouse of memories and examples of firsthand knowledge that when you do the work, you get results. And that knowledge is gold. I think when you're first starting out on the journey, you don't quite have that stockpile of trust built with this work, but you'll get it. And you have the whole community there supporting you in different ways, from the open forum to your coach to Twin Flame Ascension School to then being a volunteer, like Kanisha said, and talking with your friends. Like that's something that, I value is friendships, spiritual friendships that can help you on the journey. So I'm feeling like we're getting close to wrapping up. How is everybody else feeling? Is there anything else anybody would like to share?
I'm glad you brought up trust, because it's very much a foundational piece of
Mhm.
trusting God and trusting yourself. And when you make this into your lifestyle and allow this journey to unfold, you get that clarity that Arshia was speaking of in her reading, of bringing clarity into your life and bringing that higher perspective, especially during the obstacles. And you recognize, like, oh, this is why God's leading me through this and through the muck so I can clear this out.
Yeah. Amen. I just want to say hi to Ariel and Daniela. Thank you for your comments. Daniela was resonating with you, Granville, and what you shared, and said thank you. So, yeah, we're happy that you all came. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for being here. Please comment, and we'll always answer. Kanisha, Granville, anything else to share before we close?
It was a
No,
beautiful
I think
sermon.
Nadia touched on it in terms of trusting yourself in the journey, because, and I think it literally it speaks to how healthy your relationship is with yourself. And you spoke to it, Lisi, in terms of finding the truth and not expecting the truth to be told to you by somebody else. Finding the truth will resonate with you in a manner that feels peaceful. And that has been the core of it all along. And I can comfortably share that there have been times where I've coached with somebody and something just felt off, and I just thought it was me being difficult or not liking something they're saying. And in the end, it actually was a relationship that eventually fizzled out because they left the community. And so it's important to trust yourself. It's important to follow the niggle. You might not find that the niggle is always true, but you are being true to yourself by following the niggle.
Wait, the nickel?
The niggle.
Niggle, N-I-G-G-L-E.
When something just feels niggly, it feels glitchy,
I
it feels off.
what that word is, but I'll look it up.
Have you never just had a sense that something feels off?
Yeah, like following your
That's what you call a niggle.
Oh, okay. You learn new things every day.
I learned that word from a card deck. It was like one of Colette Baron Reed's decks. Trust the niggle. Like it was actually a card that said that. I was like, what is a niggle? And then I looked it up.
I heard
Um,
nickel. I was like, I never heard of expression to follow a nickel. So, but
Trust it and
Trust the nickel.
just in fact explore it. You don't always have to trust it, just explore it. You will find a reason why you should or should not trust it.
Yeah, I guess since we're on that topic, trust, one of the biggest things I've had to really truly trust is that I have to trust my union. I have to trust my twin flame. I have to trust that if I am doing the work, they're doing the work, whether it's in their own way or however God moves through them and leads them. I have to trust that what I am doing here is giving to my union and loving my union, and that my union is growing even if I can't see it. So trusting God with your path and your journey and your twin flames path and journey, and that the goal of that is for you to come together because that's your natural state of being.
Amen. And trusting love. Love is very trustable. So thank you everyone for being here. We love you very much, and we'll see you in the next Church of Union Sunday service and in the next after church tea time. God bless.